Hi everyone, and welcome to your weekly energy update, a general tarot guidance taking a look at how this week's energies are likely to influence our lives. Since this is a collective general guidance, just take in what resonates and what fits your situation and discard everything else. Now, this week I'm not going to be focusing that much on the collective energies because I really don't believe that that will serve anyone's greater good. To be totally honest with you, well, it's gonna be chaos. And chaos cannot really be understood that well when we are caught up in it. And because we are in a period between eclipses, this is when the veil between the worlds is especially thin. So, of course, a lot of energy which all of us collectively and individually alike put out in the universe is going to reflect at this time. And these past, let's say, 2 or 3 years, I do believe that we have put in a lot of desire for the truth, the desire to just basically know what we're doing in our lives, to be independent, to be able to experience life with greater freedom, with greater authenticity and also passion. And this wasn't like it happened solely on a mind level where we basically had this planned, but it much more happened from a deep soul level where these desires just exploded. They just came to the surface as a volcano. So one way or another, whatever basically was limiting us personally, whatever made us unhappy, whatever blocked us, was basically wished away, if we can use this symbolic term. And because it was basically done, it was like an ongoing process that we individually, not necessarily collectively, but rather individually, we kept fueling and fueling over a period of, let's say, 3 years or even 2 years, or even since just the beginning of the COVID situation. Well, that kind of built up, and right now it's manifesting, but perhaps not in a way that we kind of anticipated. Globally, it's very obvious. The truth is that there is no truth, and this is what we're seeing in each direction we're looking. Everything is both a lie and basically a mental construct or a manifestation of our needs and necessities. For example, technology might be extremely real and quite, rational for us human beings who kind of invented it. But in truth, it is just what we have done with our knowledge over how nature functions to distort her, to change certain laws and rules so that we don't have to abide them, that we are not subjected to the laws of nature. For example, healthcare and everything that has to do with technology improving our lives as material, incarnated human beings. Well, that might be an active part of our lives, but from the universe's and nature's perspective, well, that is an illusion because it's meant to bend the laws of nature, which is the greater truth, in order to basically serve us. And it doesn't really matter if it's wrong or right, if it serves a higher good or if it serves, destruction, because it's still part of the truth that outside of the human species, while technology is just an illusion, yet another way of making something which isn't real, which isn't supported by the laws of nature, let's say, become real, as in we are forcing it to become real. But at the same time, the other side of the spectrum is a lot of truth, is a lot of, things which truly resonate with us. And as I say again, individually is much more important than collectively, even though it basically tears the union and the collective, the solidarity between individuals apart, because everyone is going to be focused on their own personal truth. And yet this is also part of this basically desire to behold a greater truth, because if there is no one singular truth, then this is basically what we're gonna get. And naturally, this is like an ongoing battle between different conspiracies, different philosophies, different theories, as wild as they can get. Yet still, what it highlights is that it's true for some people, and it's totally false for other people. And this is part of reality. This is the way it should be. And ultimately, this is the truth, that everything can be true as long as you live it. Now, at the same time, there is also going to be chaos from a totally different perspective, where, if you look at today's cards, we have the Justice, Ten of Cups, and Two of Wands. And this also represents violence. This also represents battle, confrontation, from a legal perspective. From a spiritual and emotional perspective, the Ten of Cups. And also from a quite physical perspective, where there is bound to be some kind of conflict, clash, maybe even war, or some kind of unrest, which leads to violence. But, predicting this really doesn't serve anyone's greater good, so I'm not gonna go any further of how this can play out or what it means. Let's just detach from it as much as we can, and after it happens, let's just reflect and see what the greater lesson in that is, both for us as a species, but also as an individual. And another thing that I would like to mention here, for the collective mostly, this is also going to be extremely wild, spiritually speaking, because the spiritual warfare is going to be at its peak. When the veil between the worlds is as thin as it gets, well, of course, that is when, spiritualists go to war with each other and with the world and whatever they see as their opponent. So this week we might really see more darker, the more manipulative aspect of spirituality, where there are gonna be a lot of wild prophecies, where the essence of those prophecies, what is gonna make them that much wild, is not just the doom and gloom or the shocking element to them, but it's more like that they're gonna inspire like conflict. So whoever pays attention to those prophecies or their unique philosophies, well, they will inspire people to reject something, fight against something, take like almost external action against something, or focus their spiritual abilities and gifts to, like combat something. And whenever you hear anything like this, well, it rings a massive bell that the true spirit, the true divine force will never ever inspire anything like this, because the conflict and the opposite side, well, that is also the divine. So why would the divine want to attack itself? Because it has an absolute perspective. It doesn't differentiate, let's say, light or dark or whatever. It will always try to serve its greater harmony. It will always try to preserve itself, if you look at it as a living and breathing multi-dimensional organism. So it will never actually turn against itself, turn against any of its sides. Even if that conflict or opposition, let's say, is something ongoing within itself, well, it will still inspire the opposite: peace, harmony, solving differences, or disconnecting from the conflict. It will never ever inspire, action against something specific, but quite the opposite: healing and detachment or greater connection to the divine, so that one elevates themselves out of the duality and conflict. So all those like spiritual whistleblowers who will say this is fake, that is not true, that is lies, deception, manipulation, etc. And if they take it on a totally different kind of level, well, just know that that is basically, it is exactly the symbolically to be taken evil revealing itself. So it's actually those who preach it who are the primary sources which keep in existence exactly what they're preaching against. Wherever you put your focus, your energy goes towards. So of course the chaos is ongoing, endless on the external reality in the world, generally speaking, because that is the kind of frequency that we're holding, especially mentally, because social media and YouTube and everything that promotes this appeals to our mental sphere. And funny enough, these people actually tell us that we're being mind controlled, we have to wake up, we have to break the patterns, but it is exactly them who are keeping these patterns as tight, as self-fulfilling as possible, because they are nurturing this reality. When something has to fall apart, when something has to die, well, basically you allow it to die. Whenever you tend to its wounds, to its drama, you just keep it alive, you just pump basically life force into it. So if we want, the old structure and the old system, whatever, to crumble, well, this is how we make sure that it crumbles, that we extract our focus and attention from it and just allow it to basically be demolished. We allow it to fall, and when it falls, of course, we are gonna reconstruct. But this might just be the collective side of things, where the ongoing chaos is not a big surprise, because one way or another, maybe all of us are still keeping that reality, that chaos in existence. But fortunately, individually, it might be a totally different picture, because, at least astrologically speaking, we do have a lot of really, really good energies at play, especially divinely inspirational energies. So those will be a great help for us. And these cards might just reveal in which area. Well, this justice does represent our choices. We also have a Mercury retrograde season right now. So of course we are weighing our options. We are processing what is possible, what is not possible in a very rational way, but at the same time we take into consideration what our hearts and emotional worlds want and need and desire, whatever resonates for who it is that we are and what doesn't. So even though we might not have decisions right now, even though it might not really be crystal clear what it is that we want to take with us in the future, who it is that we want to share our future with, and whatever we have to leave behind. And of course, whoever it is that we have to leave behind, may it be a job, contract. The Justice card is susceptible to everything that has to do with agreement, legal matters. But also, where we once decided on something, where we once focused on something, and we started to take action, we started to work with that, and maybe we have come to a point where, even if it was like in the very recent past, where not so long ago, maybe just 4 or 6 months ago, a year ago, but perhaps we worked so very intensely on whatever that is, maybe a relationship, maybe a project, maybe a legal situation, that we have basically just exhausted it. And even if it's a little bit premature, but perhaps our inner calling might tell us to aim for something even bigger, even better, because we already outgrown that which we have initiated a year ago. So this might be an inner calling to readjust our plans, to perfect them. And the Ten of Cups, sometimes the perfection represents to dream even bigger, because many of us have actually grown emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. So we became much more mature, but at the same time, maybe this is a dichotomy, but much more innocent versions of ourselves. And naturally, this has to be reflected in our future plans, our goals, and whatever we have to decide upon. And this moment of big decision, this moment of choice, may it be legal or just simply personal or regarding a relationship of any nature, this might coincide with the upcoming Gemini solar eclipse, because that will be about choices, decisions, and basically having the big picture and the perfected plan for our futures. This is gonna take place on the 10th of June, but its sphere of action is gonna be much larger, so we might not have to come up with the plan immediately. We have 6 months on our disposal, but during those 6 months, so until the end of the year basically, we do have to kind of refine, we have to kind of be truly aligned to what we desire, not just, based on emotions, based on our passions, our hearts, but also these choices have to be rational, grounded, and down to earth. And this isn't a very easy thing to accomplish, because we have to find the right balance, the right frequency, the right, maybe for some people, compromises, which are not too much for our morality and dignity. So we don't really abandon who we are, but at the same time, we cannot allow our ideals to be way up high in the clouds. So this week is going to start a very delicate process of refining our desires, our deepest desires, but more of on an intellectual scale, where what we desire can be accomplished materially, physically, situationally, and legally, of course. So basically, this is what weighing our options truly means. And we must be really patient and tolerant with ourselves, because doubt, change of mind, change of feelings, a change of heart, even if it, goes up and down, even if we are really, really unsure of ourselves, and even if this might come across as a sort of inner conflict where the mind battles the heart, this is not really doom and gloom or drama. We have to allow these energies to play themselves out within us, so that we can reach an understanding of what we need and what our options are that much clearer. Even if we go through a period of doubts, of up and downs, of going back and forth between certain options, that's not really negative, as long as we don't allow these, changes, these inner forces to drive us insane. Well, these are actually quite helpful, because this is how a pendulum works. Until one of the choices becomes crystal clear, well, we will go back and forth, and this is part of the larger Mercury retrograde season. It is part of this year, 2021. And this is also the challenge, where the only way we can use this to our advantage, if we are truly kind, loving, understanding, and patient with ourselves. And that means allowing the doubts to play out. But of course, on very healthy levels, so not where they send us into despair and doom and gloom and any of that. And ultimately, this Ten of Cups, perhaps the biggest core truth that we have to build everything around, and this might be something universal for every single individual, is that on one hand, happiness depends on us. Happiness has to be part of the future, because otherwise it will not make sense. And at the same time, we cannot allow happiness, for what it means for us individually and personally, to depend on anyone or anything external. Of course, this doesn't mean deluding ourselves in the sense that all we need to do is believe that we're happy and we're happy. No, It means that we have to believe that we have this divine power to create even externally that which means happiness for us personally, and not really depend on the external to create it for us. And another expression of this Ten of Cups, well, we're still in the influence of this lunar eclipse, so that means a lot of karmic endings, terminations, and at the same time completions. So a lot of us might still have karmic events playing out in our lives, fulfillments, completions, separations, releasing something that no longer serves us, and where they all lead us to is this Ten of Cups, where we are emotionally stable, where we just feel safe and found symbolically, because we know that at the end of the day, regardless of how fate played out or how it still has to play out, there is one thing that is not going to change, and that is we have ourselves, we have the support and the confidence of our own beings. So whatever happens, whatever terminates, whatever completes, whatever gets fulfilled, we still are able to adapt ourselves and, more importantly, find our unique path and journeys, or whatever it is that we have to do for our happiness in whatever we basically get through the manifestation of this karma. Now, there is another side of this energy as well. This Two of Wands, on one hand, this represents the not so rational and logical, but more emotional and pure desire side of this huge decision-making process that all of us are living through under this Mercury retrograde. So this kind of represents that we have to find a singularity and not be, in between two totally opposite options. But of course, the only way to be aligned to that singularity is that sometimes we do have to surrender one of the options, one of the possible outcomes, one of the sides of this desire. But we cannot surrender until it becomes very crystal clear, even to our willpower, to, for example, the limits of our power. If something is totally beyond our ability to achieve that, well, normally that is what we have to surrender, because confronting our limits, where the borderline is imperatively necessary. Because yes, there is an option to overcome our limits, our boundaries, etc. But that requires a sacrifice. That requires stepping into something which will alter us forever. And for most of us, overcoming those limits are really, really not worth it. And perhaps this might be one of those greater truths and revelations of this period between the eclipses. What is not worth it for us personally? Which desire, or for some people even obsession, is not worth the price that we have to pay for it? Regardless if the price is something spiritual, something psychological, like adapting to a specific mindset, because that might basically take away, symbolically to be understood, a part of our souls, that inner power that we have to sacrifice to overcome that which is there for a very specific reason. All our limits have either spiritual, mental, or philosophical logic and rationality to it. And that is something that we have to process, understand, and ultimately either accept or refuse, because even the refusal is already making that choice. If we made the choice to overcome our limits, our boundaries, that which keeps us under certain parameters, so to speak, well, that is a choice that we will have to enact once we are sure that that is what we want to do. So this is why another aspect of this Two of Wands, it is confrontation. Confrontation maybe with ourselves, a part of ourselves, other people, family members, wherever or whatever symbolizes our limits. Or perhaps wherever we have to draw the resources from to enact our choices. So it is definitely going to be quite a revelatory, philosophical, and even kind of hair-splitting week, but not in a bad sense. You know, usually hair-splitting is like overthinking and mental chaos, but if we truly know how to use this period towards our advantage, that is not going to be overthinking, but rather carefully, with the coldness of rationality and logic, weighing our options, but at the same time combining this with a certain kind of self-psychoanalysis, the Two of Wands, and at the same time accepting whatever karma of our own destinies, our own spiritual journeys are revealing and showing us in our lives of how to achieve emotional stability, that Ten of Cups energy. Yes, for some people it can be like miraculous energy, I'm not gonna lie. It can be like great happiness, not just for them, but for their families, for their loved ones. But for other people, it can be the exact opposite, separation from that. But it doesn't have to be like suffering, doom and gloom. It can simply be the acceptance of the greater truth and knowing that whatever ends, something much better has to take its place. And not because this is like the rule of the universe, but much more because this is what you have done in your life. You will get what you deserve, the Justice card. You've been fair, honest, and equitable, so there is no reason why certain terminations, completions, or surrenders should lead to your disadvantage. Actually, they have to lead to something much better for you personally. And this is exactly the essence of the divine guidance, where we have the Tower card and the Two of Cups. The Tower is very self-explanatory. Completions, changes, perhaps upheavals are due to happen in our lives personally, but those are definitely not moments of great crisis. Neither are they doom and gloom, but they are basically like a spiritual catapult guiding us to whatever we love the most. This Two of Cups. Of course, for some people, especially those who are single and looking, this will either guide them to the relationship that means completion and fulfillment for them personally, or to the means of finding that special person and the relationship. Either way, it's good news. For other people, it doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic type of energy. The Two of Cups represents Venus in Cancer. Whatever makes you happy, whatever you seek out there in the world will definitely be seeking you as well. And sometimes we need a jump, a push, a quantum leap, a catapult moment to get us into that state, into that position, into that alignment where we can find what we're looking for, or for that to find us. So whatever Tower moments might be happening in your life this week, it's really not bad. It's really not the usual doom and gloom, but actually it is a moment of divine surprise. And this can even be perfectly valid materially, because for some people happiness means material stability, a better health, a much more basically stable and pleasure-oriented lifestyle. And when I say pleasure-oriented, this doesn't mean excess, or this doesn't mean luxury in a material sense, but it means that earthly life has to be balanced out with pleasure and as well. And chances are many of us were lacking that severely in our lives. So basically, this is definitely a part of the divine guidance telling us not to fear the tower, pleasure, not to allow, let's say, certain ideologies, again, the tower, our inner structures, to prevent us from immersing ourselves into life's pleasures whenever life offers us that opportunity, because that's not very common. It doesn't happen every single day. So if this tower collapses, destroys, uproots something, well, that is those inner structures of ours which keep us from happiness, from having joy, from having pleasurable moments in our lives. And for a lot of us, that is exactly something quite usually positive, like a spirit of duty, sense of responsibility, a sense of diligence, where we also protect and care and nurture and provide stability for other people. Well, maybe this week it is exactly that which is gonna be struck down, catapulting us towards greater freedom, pleasure, and whatever happiness means for us personally. Now, in the position of things we should be careful with, this Fool card represents not to rush with our choices, with our decisions. Yes, the bigger picture of this week and all of this month of June basically is for us to refine our choices, to be able to enter a state of clarity where we know exactly what we're choosing and the modus operandi of how to enable our future goals and dreams and wishes and desires to be like palpable, stable, and grounded. And this Fool warns us that even if we might think that we achieved that very quickly, for some people it can be like a huge epiphany, like a moment of sudden realization, or like a really, really unexpected option just simply out of nowhere popping up in their lives. Well, this Fool advises us that that is absolutely fine, it is great, it is fantastic, but don't rush, don't jump into it, don't take that leap of faith instantly, but rather take some time to truly immerse yourself into whatever appeared in your life. May that be just the epiphany moment, the light bulb, the eureka moment, or may that be like a real opportunity, a big chance popping up in your life. Give yourself time to basically integrate it on a soul level. So before you choose it, before you enable it, enact it, say yes to it maybe, give yourself some time for your feelings and emotions to settle, to get a grip on your frequency basically, because that Fool represents excitedness and a huge sense of, let's say, adrenaline as well, because whatever might be appearing in your life might be a little bit way too big or shocking, or it might need processing, mental processing, of how you can take that opportunity and create something custom made for you. Maybe the opportunity is gonna be like a big resource. Maybe it's gonna be like very brutal, very raw, unrefined. It is just giving you an option, or it is just opening a door for you. But you stepping through that door will need at least a plan, at least a foresight of how and what you're gonna do after you step through that door. Or if it's like a resource or big opportunity, you need to logically and rationally work with it, in the sense that you have to make it your own, customize it, and only after you did this is your journey truly gonna begin. Because this Fool card also warns us that yes, the opportunity or whatever, this chance, maybe an epiphany, the idea, the option will enter your life, If you kind of get carried away by the adrenaline, for example, oh, it's too good to be true, or maybe you might fear that it is a one chance opportunity and you must very, very quickly seize it, grab it. If you do this with great haste, if you make it into a leap of faith, yes, there is a chance that you will have the beginner's luck and land exactly where you need to be. But there is that other chance that maybe you will kind of get lost in it, get even more confused than before, and you might not be able to do something very practical with it, even though this doesn't mean that the opportunity is gonna be lost. It's still gonna be yours, but you will still have to have that moment, that period of time to process it, even if you decide to take a leap of faith, or even if you decide to diligently and responsibly, based on your own wisdom, to process it, refine it, make it your own, before you kind of take that leap of faith. So it doesn't really matter if you do this before or after, because, allowing your emotions, your adrenaline to settle down, to integrate this option into your life emotionally. Basically, sometimes when something really good happens, we need a certain amount of time to believe and just process that this really happened to us. And right now, in this moment, it's actually part of our futures. And that is not as easy to process than one might think, because, the moon card reversed, a lot of unconscious fears may pop up, a lot of doubts, insecurities, or feelings of unworthiness. So it's not as easy as we think. And this is exactly why we need to allow the adrenaline to settle, and so that we can act from a place where we just know and accept and basically own this reality that this actually happened to us and it is part of our futures already. So this concludes today's reading. I do hope that you enjoyed it and you found it useful. If you'd like to support my work, you can donate on the PayPal in the description below. Thank you again for all the likes, shares, and beautiful comments. I wish everyone a blessed and really harmonious week. And maybe this is not just an empty wish. We do have the Jupiter-Venus trine in the sky, which does speak about blessings, joy, romance, unconditional love. So I really, really hope that that is the energy that it's gonna manifest in your life more than anything else. Thank you again. Until next time. Bye for now.